All right, welcome back everybody to another exciting episode of AI Data Mastery. I'm your host, Jason Renno, and here with our guest today, the managing partner of the Bridge Group, Kyle Smith. And we're talking about this ahead of time in terms of like the way to make the introduction. And I grabbed this off the website. I thought this was cool, but Kyle is somebody that is equally comfortable in the microbiology lab and making sales calls. And immediately what that made me thought of is, do you ever watch the show Billions?
I have, yeah.
Okay, where Bobby's in the conference room, and then what's his right hand guy, Wags, and
Yeah.
Bobby's doing all the math, and Wags just looks at him and goes, "I forgot you can do the math." And then that's what it kind of reminds me of, like, he can sell it and do the math. And anyways, it's a compliment. I mean, I'm comparing you to the Bobby Oxford, the character, or whatever you want to call him. But
Yeah.
anyways, that's what it made me think of. But jumping right in here, let's touch on and let's learn a little bit more about yourself, maybe your individual story that can possibly lead into or should lead into the Bridge Group, and a little bit about the Bridge Group as well.
Sure. Yeah. So I went to college for biology, worked in a microbiology research lab, realized at the end of my academic career that there was really a fork in the road in terms of what I could do. I was very, very, very sick of being poor. And so the idea of going down a advanced degree or PhD route and being poor for another 5 years was not overly appealing to me. So I reached out to a mentor, Trish Bertuzzi, who was the founder of the Bridge Group, and said, "What should I do?" And she said, "You have the personality for it. You should try sales." And I did that, got addicted, and ultimately circled back around, joined the Bridge Group 2 years later after selling for a couple of years. And I've been here since 2014.
Wonderful. And then specifically, what are a couple success stories that we can talk about that the Bridge Group, without naming clients' names if you don't want to? Typically I find that's an easier way to elaborate on what the company does and the value it brings, rather than just kind of running down the punch list. So can you share a couple of like major success stories that you've worked on recently?
Yeah, sure. So we're exclusively sales consulting. So boutique services firm. And so one that was probably the most commercially successful for a client was we helped do the design, build, and training of a sales development function for them. So they previously only had account executives who closed deal. We added a top of funnel team. And the year after we implemented that, they tripled in revenue. So obviously there's a lot of factors involved. I can't take exclusive credit for it. But in terms of the immediate aftermath of one of our engagements, that was probably the most commercially successful in terms of revenue driven from the company. My personal favorite, and the one that I feel most proud of, is that I was working with a frontline manager doing what we call it like coach the coach, basically manager professional development. And they'd been struggling to upskill 3 team members. And we built like this whole professionalized development plan and worked through the manager on coaching and how to upskill some of the sales reps that were on their team. And that they saw 3 reps who were probably going to get fired. Like we were weeks away from PIP. And they actually turned them into 90 to 110% performers over the course of 2 months. Like we're talking 60 days, dramatic improvement. And it's more so like the personal reaction, seeing the managers like sense of pride over like, look what I did with my team. I really liked. So that was probably for me personally, one of my favorite engagements, even though it's not like it fundamentally changed the business we were working with, having a couple reps perform at a higher level, but it was more fun.
Gotcha. Can you share a little more detail in terms of a little more detail when you come in and you're helping a client? Is this one-on-one coaching? Is this like, are you helping them besides just say the coaching? Are you reviewing sales calls with them? Are you helping them with their email and text follow-up and LinkedIn outreach? Like, how is it? Is it just the sales coaching on the calls, or is it kind of everything to get the deal closed?
Yeah, all the above. So we have, I call it, we're professional services. So we're super niche in terms of the profile of company we work with. We only work with organizations who are B2B, and we are probably 90% consolidated to tech or SaaS companies. And only the sales or revenue generating function within them. So that becomes like a pretty small world. But once we're there, we do a ton of different stuff. And so we design go-to-market strategy, help build like the operating plan, headcount, roles, metrics, compensation plan, tech stack, process, rules of engagement. So like strategy stuff is one huge piece of our business. But then we have this tactical side where we essentially or effectively act as sales enablement, where we're building enablement tools or very tactical how-to guides as to how every rep should execute their process. And then sometimes we just do the doing, like fractional leadership type gigs where we are acting as a VPS sales or frontline manager would, where we are rolling up our sleeves and actually doing strategic one-on-ones, call coaching, deal review, pipeline reviews, stuff like that. So the answer is all the above. As long as we're in the little niche that we play in, we do a lot of stuff.
Wow. And then it's all obviously at that point, it's all customized completely to the client. There really is no, you know, like there's some businesses that has a package or a specific service. You're coming in, working with the client, getting very granular and detailed, and coming up with a specific strategic plan for them.
Yeah, it's why companies it's the only reason why we not the only reason, but one of the primary reasons why we win deals is that everything is customized and very specific to each client. If we had a program, it'd probably be more financially successful for me and my business partners because once the IP is developed, you can resell it more effectively versus the labor intensive customized approach. But I think it proves to source better outcomes for the clients. And so I will never change it. I love the bespoke nature of the way we do business.
I was going to say that was my next question is like any thoughts on changing or from a business standpoint yeah, so no thoughts on changing. You want to continue to be the Ritz-Carlton of the space, not the Motel 6, so to speak.
Definitely. And there's a place for models and frameworks, and
100%,
I think those are great. And so I don't want to sound like too negative on those. I think there's a spot for them. It's just not in our DNA, and I'm not interested in changing it. I love the way that we engage with clients, and even if it affects our ability to scale, I'm okay with that.
Perfect. And then obviously, with the name being AI and data mastery, where do you see AI? I guess a couple folds. I mean, and we can start anywhere on this. The current clients that you're working with, do you see your current, B2B clients embracing AI, shining away, scared of it, somewhere in between, a little bit of everything? And then, well, actually, yeah, let's just start there. Where do you see the kind of current mood of, the B2B space with AI?
Obsessed.
Obsessed?
Obsessed. Every
Okay.
single conversation that I have with executive leadership teams, boards, investors includes AI to some extent. Sometimes it's the sole topic of conversation, but at a minimum, it's part of every meaningful discussion about go forward plan is how are we going to leverage AI? That takes different shapes. Sometimes it is how do we amplify the effectiveness of the people we already have on board, make them more efficient, make sure that the actual human capital investment is being maximized through the utilization of AI. And sometimes it is talking about how are we going to replace underperforming or low value employees with agentic solutions. And so I have a massive spectrum in terms of where people fall on it, where how much are they talking about, thinking about versus how much have they actually done, and how much is company owned versus how much is the employees in the company taking it upon themselves to use, more consumer friendly AI tools to try to advance the way that they sell. So I have a massive spectrum, but it is in part of every single conversation. I don't have anyone who's shying away saying we don't want to implement this.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know the reason. I mean, that's the tone that I get, in the sort of quote unquote B2B space. I did have somebody on the show yesterday. She's like more of a health and wellness coach, but in the corporate space. And she was saying she has some clients that are just like scared to death of it, don't want to use it. And, just like, yeah, well, see how long they're going to be in business.
Yeah, I think there, especially with software companies, I think the most of the hesitation is not to adoption of AI. It is fear of security. Largely, you have to be careful of where you unleash it within the organization to make sure that you're not informing a public LLM with sensitive information, which obviously is a massive concern, and then also making sure that. I mean, that's honestly the big one. not either yours or your clients or customers. Like, you just have to be careful about what type of parameters you put around what you're going to unleash AI into, and making sure that that doesn't have unintended consequences. So that's a real fear, and one that is valid and needs careful consideration. But not turning a blind eye to what's happening and what's possible, and saying we don't want to do this because philosophically we're in disagreement with the capabilities that AI brings to bear. So I say that just to provide more context to, like, where, if I am seeing resistance, it's not anti AI, it's legitimate concern over what is known and unknown, and making sure that the business doesn't unintentionally expose themselves to risk that could have been otherwise avoided.
Yeah, they're not sharing PII and things like that into a
Yeah, I mean, which you can easily do. That
yeah, well, I mean,
mistake can happen
if it's
quickly.
being fed into like a CRM, but then you want that super customization with the emails that go out and your follow up. But well, yeah, I mean, if you want the AI to know the name and all that custom information, then you have to share it to some extent, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And so you want, like, in an ideal world, and let's say it's a customer, because I like that example because it's more complicated. You want to customize your messaging to a customer and make sure you're maintaining the relationship in the best way possible. You want publicly available information like news, press releases, LinkedIn profiles, whatever. You also want your CRM data, which is actual history of conversations with them. And maybe also you want something from the back end, ERP data, something about the actual transactions, monetary things that are happening with that client. And then maybe also you want something from customer service, which could be included or somewhat separate from CRM. And now, if you're saying we're going to give this access to all those different source systems, I understand why somebody in IT in particular might be a little scared about letting AI unleash on 5 different critical source systems and pulling data from all those disparate sources.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I could understand that as well. But
Yeah,
and but that's where, rather than like you said, just letting AI run rapid. I mean, that's where you have to segment and control the data that AI is
exactly.
going to receive. AI doesn't need all of that data to send out a quote unquote custom email. It needs a name. It can job into the company name, the especially if you're talking about B2B, where you're not looking at income and all this, you're looking at job revenue. And in the B2B space, 99% of that is all publicly forward information anyway. So if you're very careful about what you're sharing and it's only that publicly forward information, the company information, the business email, the person's name, that type of stuff, then but yes, it's when you're letting AI run rapid across the entire system, you're definitely going to run into some trouble, right?
Yeah, indeed.
Um, what about so everybody's looking to? Would you say there's a specific like department, or is it more like, hey, we need this for sales, we need this for fulfillment, or we just like need this everywhere? Is there typically more of a focus?
I can
I know.
really only speak the
So
I
I was
can
going to
really
say,
only
I know
speak
you're
the
focused on sales.
Yeah, the sales or the go-to-market function more broadly is really the only place where I have intimate knowledge of the workings of our client base. And so I can't speak to fulfillment or even ops or other departments. Marketing, I know, is using it for content creation, which is exactly what you would expect. So more
Mhm.
thought leadership type content, uh, email copy they're using, and there's a bunch of different tools that make that really easy and scalable. And then sales, a lot for call preparation, research, basically. Go identify a bunch of relevant information that I can leverage as part of either my outreach to attempt to get somebody to be willing to talk to me, the email example you brought up before, or I have a call coming up with this person. Where should I focus the conversation beyond what I know in my own head? And so go source information for me rather than me spending 45 minutes clicking around to 15 different websites. AI can accelerate that process pretty dramatically. The other one is like bolt-ons to pre-existing tools that we've used for a long time. Gong or any conversation intelligence is a great example where you record the call. And as a salesperson, you used to have to type up your notes, think about how that was going to affect the way that you tee up a proposal. Yeah, it makes that a lot faster. You have immediate summary from transcription, AI summary, copy and paste into the CRM. Your notes are done in a minute instead of 10 to 12. And so that seems like not that big a deal. But then when you scale it up across, you know, 50 calls a month, 50 reps on a team, 10 minutes apiece. All of a sudden, you're talking about a meaningful impact of total selling time across an organization, which starts to matter. So that's the way
And
I.
50 calls a month isn't that much. I mean, hopefully your salespeople are making more calls than that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, now is there, have any of the companies you're working with gotten into the actual like AI SDRs where they're actually like booking appointments for them and
Mhm.
the emails and the LinkedIn connections, and that's all kind of like automated with AI?
Yes, with a caveat. So I had some clients who are definitely early adopters of AI SDRs. And I think in its infancy, which is probably 8 months ago, it's moving quick, but then we were seeing short term pop in terms of productivity, like a flurry of activity, and then some negative ramifications coming on the back end. If you didn't spin up a new domain, we had some sender score or reputational harm done to email domains just because of the pure volume of emails and engagement rates on those emails. And so we saw some people pull back, wait for the technology to get a little bit farther along, and now leaning back in to figure out, okay, well, if we don't want to do this for every single prospect in our universe and uh, unleash it on everyone, where are the specific use cases for this? So I'm seeing a lot of agentic functionality built in for inbound lead management in particular and certain lead sources where there's a pretty controlled pathway that you can push somebody down in a really fast and efficient way. I'm seeing a ton of success there with agentic solutions for like AI SDRs.
Yeah, I agree. I've been looking into many of them, from like just the emails, the LinkedIn's. Even now, everybody's pushing the big push is the voice AI. SDRs have a voice AI call the lead right away, which,
Mhm.
I mean, it sounds cool, but then I guess to what extent is it just to book the appointment, close the call, and I think from a B2B standpoint, if like you just signed up for I don't know, like a more of a low ticket product, but if you're on a B2B and you're trying to sell like $100,000 a year contract for your software and you fill out a form, to have an AI bot call back right away versus person, I don't know. Are you in your opinion, I guess, are you missing out on a sales opportunity by leaning too far into AI at that point on that high ticket B2B sale versus having that person at that point, having that actual live SDR pick up the phone and call back?
Maybe. I want to see the data do the talking. I like experimenting. That academic background hasn't left me.
No, I'm
I
all,
like
yeah, that's it.
experimenting.
That's A/B tested.
Let's try it and then let's see. I want to I think it's worth trying. I think it's interesting. It's not such a terrible idea that I would say let's not do that. I think it's interesting enough that it has to be worth exploring. And then we need to understand what the data tells us. I think there's always a spot for things, which is some segment of your market is going to be underserved by your sales development headcount. And so rightfully so, they're going to skew towards higher deal sizes, which is how they're going to source enough pipeline to validate their headcount cost. And so whether that's said explicitly or it's management directive or that's just what happens naturally, that's the fact. And so are there sellable customers at the lower end of the market with small potential deal sizes that you still want as customers, but you can't validate SDRs jumping into the mix on them because of the unit economics? That seems like a really good spot to test this to me and then see what type of response and engagement you get there.
Yeah, very interesting. Have you had any of your clients or businesses try out any type of like voice AI or go as
None of the
far as to try
voice.
none of the
Everything's
voices?
been yeah, everything's been like written digital type stuff. I don't have anyone who has already implemented any of the voice solutions.
Interesting. Because that's what I was trying to think or see if there's any kind of feedback or I guess
Not
just in
yet.
general, just feedback on that. Yeah, that'll be coming soon, I'm sure.
Definitely.
Um, Anything else what about from a B2B standpoint, how important is data in your process? Are you just, in terms of obviously from a sales standpoint, you guys just kind of pull data from an Apollo or Zoom and kind of feed it into the system and see see who's interested, or I don't know, from data, where does data fall into your realm, if you want to call it that?
Yeah. I would say that I used to be much more intimately involved in data conversations than I am now, if I think across the entire client base. And the data tech stack has become significantly more sophisticated with the way that it's ingested, appended, and routed and maintained. And so I have a client right now that has 12 different solutions that in some way, shape, or form touch and influence data within the system. It's a large global organization with a ton of sales reps. Uh, but yes, at the earlier stages, sure, use like a Zoom Info, Apollo, buy lists, import them, append and update existing contacts. Super important. I mean, when I think about how much you can get from a rep, the coaching is a huge piece to make sure that they are as good as possible when they are in front of a customer or a prospect. And then it becomes a question of once you've achieved that, like when I put you in front of a customer or prospect, I know that you're going to execute those interactions to the best of your ability or as effectively as is possible. And then it is how do I make sure that you have as many of those as possible over the course of a day, week, month, quarter? And solving the data problem and not making that a manual effort that sits on the shoulders of the rep is super important. So that's the time when I start interacting, when I feel like we have a productivity hindrance that's coming through for data, is when I start applying pressure to say, hey, let's let's solve this.
That's it's not a random decision here. It's a number scheme.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it all breaks down to, and it leads me back to what is it, Stephen Covey's book, where it's think with the end in mind. So it's everybody wants to start where it's like, oh well, we want this, we want this. It's like, okay, well, you can't just turn on a faucet in marketing, so to speak, or sales. You can't just turn on the faucet and get that immediate result. For the most part, you have to test, you have to fail, you have to figure out what's going to work. So let's think with the end in mind. What do we want to happen? What's the perfect result in 60 days from now? And then work backwards from there to figure out the steps that we need to get there. But yeah, I guess it all goes back to you have to be willing to kind of test and fail and see what's going to work or what's not going to work, whether it's right off the bat with a new campaign or whether it's trying something new, like going from a live human appointment setter type of SDR to a voice AI.
Yeah. And sometimes you just have to have a steady hand. And so sometimes when you're going in to test something, you need to know having a good sense of when to pull the ripcord and bail versus when to stay the course and let something play out a little bit longer is pretty important. And I've seen plenty of instances of it going bad on both directions. Is it's been a year. We are having no traction, no success. We have not made any progress whatsoever. Like, when are we going to say this isn't working?
Yeah.
And then other times it's been 3 weeks and we're like, this has to stop immediately. It's in some instances you're like, hold on, like based on what? We need a steady hand here and just let this play out. Talk to me in another 3 weeks. Give me at least 6 weeks. I'd like a quarter, but 3 weeks we're going to already
I was just going to say, what do you think of from a business standpoint, whether it's a new sales or marketing or some sort of implementation? I mean, yeah, you got to ask for at least 60 to 90 days before you know something's going to work or not, or even has the potential of working. Because in the B2B space, the clients aren't selling a tube of toothpaste or a pair of shoes. These aren't quick decisions. These are 6 to 12 month relationships that lead into 6 to 7 figure contracts.
Exactly.
It's starting something and then getting the process going and having the opportunity to build a relationship with the right person, not looking for that immediate gratification where somebody's going to fill out a lead and, oh yeah, let me sign this contract. Yeah, 100 grand for the next 12 months. And, I just saw you on some Facebook ad 30 seconds ago. Like, come on, like it just doesn't work like that.
No, not at all. And so, yeah, we can use leading indicator metrics to tell us if we're trending in the right direction. The results are never going to be there in any pilot time period, to your point, because you're talking about a 6 to 12 month sales cycle. Sure, if you're talking about 150 to 250K deals, but then you're also talking about 6 to 8 weeks before you have opportunity creation, which is then starts the clock on the 6 to 12 months. And so the best you can do is start to identify leading indicators over the course of the first quarter. And what I'm looking for is trend lines. And so even if we are off the benchmark, let's say we wanted to have 5 additional prospect conversations per day and 1 more meeting. And even if we're not achieving that, okay, over the course of 3 weeks, are we heading closer to that? Where's the trend line pointing? And so, hold on, like, let's know, or did we start high and now we're like slowly fizzling out? So, trend lines and how we're pacing on leading indicator metrics is one of the key things that I want to look at to see are we making progress towards what we're trying to achieve, not just hit or miss, continue or quit. I think that's an oversimplification, and the ramifications are too big to treat it that way.
I agree. It's getting the clients to understand those trends is the most important thing, is or to getting the businesses to understand those trends. And yes, stay the course. It's look, we're you know last month there was 400 people visited your website. This month 4,000 people visited your website. We're trending in the right direction. There's more.
Yeah.
We're attacking more of your total addressable market. More people know about you, but it just takes time from there. You got to build trust and credibility and all that other fun stuff. Shoot, I was gonna just ask you a question. Now I'm brain farting.
Oh, good.
Anyway, we're almost 30 minutes into it. Gosh darn it! I was gonna ask you a question. Anyways, one of the final questions I like to ask is, I think I love everything you're saying. You and I can probably talk about this or even do another episode down the road and come up with a more specific topic. Because I just the trend topic and like identifying the trends and the buying cycles and the length of the buying cycle and all that kind of stuff is what I'd maybe even do a second episode with you to talk about. But to wrap things up here, instead of me just continue to ramble, what is somebody listening to this, if they were to read one book in the business space that has helped you the most, what would be your what's your favorite book? What's your most highly recommended book?
I'm struggling to pick one. My
Just favorite book, period. How about that?
Yeah, I would say this has a lot to do with about when I read it in terms of stage of my career. But I love the Challenger sale, and so I read that 1 month into my first sales job, and it just clicked for me. It made sense. It allowed me to wrap my arms around like something tangible that I could understand from a sales perspective. Whereas I had a science academic background, I had no idea what professional B2B sales was, and that reading that book made a pretty significant impact. And so, if I had to pick one, it would probably be that. Over time, I think I've liked other books more, but that one, in terms of that, was kept popping into my head.
That was the first one.
Yeah, that was the first one that had a really big pop.
What about more recently? Is there any? Social media is flooded. Everybody's a sales trainer nowadays or whatever. But do any more current sales trainers stand out to you, or that you recommend? Even outside of the trendier ones, like your Jeremy Miners or those ones, or maybe you do like Jeremy Miner, but any one that you recommend or kind of follow, or?
I think Jeb Blunt is fantastic. I think his books and his content are top notch. And the other one that's probably, not probably, definitively has a larger following is, I think Simon Sinek produces incredible content. Start with Why is fantastic.
That's so funny. And he was trendy for a minute years ago. And then he kind of, I still liked his podcast. But yes, I like Simon Sinek as well. It's just a completely more organic approach, or I don't know if you want to. Anyways, I'm a fan of Simon Sinek as well. That's a wonderful wonderful recommendation. He has, I think that was his first one, right? But then he's had several books since then.
Leaders Eat Last was another.
Yes, I was trying to think of the other one. Leaders Eat Last. That's a phenomenal one, especially if you're in the leadership role. And then there's so many good podcasts out, and his is longer now. His podcast used to be a little bit shorter, and now he's like transitioned into this hour and a half podcast. But sometimes those are a little tougher to digest, but his content's great.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I appreciate your time. I think there's immense value here for our audience in terms of B2B marketing, sales acquisition, all that fun stuff. And I look forward to possibly doing another episode with you down the road. But for now, really appreciate your time, Kyle. Any last words before we sign off?
No, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
We appreciate you being here as well. Don't forget to like or subscribe to this channel here on YouTube and all over social media. We appreciate your time, and thank you for tuning in for AI Data Mastery. Have a great day.